Yo, what is up everyone? Tachi here. So today we are going to be talking about Tales of Crestoria. I actually just finished up playing a bit of the beta. Overall, I will say that the game is definitely worth trying out, and at least as far as I can tell is fairly free to play friendly. The dupe system itself is actually not that bad. The basic gist of how it works is when you summon, you're actually not summoning for characters, you're actually summoning for Memoria. Now Memoria, basically the first time you get a Memoria, you get the character that it is associated with, and every other time it's basically either you can use it in your party, equipping it to your units, you can use it in your subgrid, grid system. Obviously if you're familiar with Granblue, it's similar to that except not with weapons. There are book-like things in it if you are familiar with Brave 9 or Brown Dust if you played back in the day. Instead of getting dupes, you could use these little things that you get from a shop. You get 5 of them a month, and I believe there's also 5 for the Memoria ones. So you can get 5 for the character and 5 for the Memoria, and you can use those to max out a character instead. That is an option. It's similar to books. It is very similar to normal Tales combat in that it does have its own little gimmick. There is actually a combo system in this game, so if you're familiar with Tales, you will be delighted at that. The way it basically works is that as you combo, you do deal increased damage. Also, enemies do have a break gauge on them. When you do break an enemy's guard, you actually do deal increased damage to them. Obviously, this is not something that matters when you're fighting against small fries, but it will help you out when you're fighting against bosses. Now, when it comes to PvP, it's pretty similar to Epic 7's PvP, where you're fighting against an AI controlled enemy team. Obviously your rewards are based on what tier you get and your rank. Now there is a slight problem, I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure how it works. I suppose we'll have to see when the game comes out. But under the reward rankings, it basically kind of insinuates that if you're not in the top 800, you're not going to get any rewards. Now, obviously, you're broken up into tiers, right? So you only need to get top 100 in like silver 4. But what if what if the game is big enough that even top 800 of a single tier is like very difficult to get? Like, what if we're talking about like tens of thousands of players, hundreds of thousands of players, and there's thousands of players in each tier playing PvP? Doesn't that kind of suck that basically a lot of people are going to be left out of rewards that they could have gotten if it was basically any other game? Now, I'm not 100% sure how that's going to end up working, so I guess we will have to wait until the game is actually out, but that could be a major problem for some people, and I think that could be a problem for me as well. Now, when it comes to raids, I really don't know much about them other than they're very similar to how it works in Granblue. So basically you can encounter a raid and just I guess people can join in, so that even if you can't fight a certain raid by yourself because your team is underpowered, it's fine because someone else can finish the raid for you. This is actually even similar to Valkyrie Crusade, if you guys have played that many years ago. Now, I think it's fine how the system is. The raid shop is actually pretty good too. I think I have a video of that, so you can check that out. Now, onto the topic of the summoning system. A multi in this game costs 2,500 diamonds, I guess we'll call them. Now, that's about 2 weeks of low rank arena rewards. It's not that bad. Obviously you also get, if I recall correctly, I believe it's around 30 from your actual story mode clears for each single chapter thing. So that's great. Actually, I don't know if you would call them chapters, but like parts of a chapter. That's great. So it's actually not that hard to get him. Rates are 5% for an SSR, and the 10th pull of the multi is also 5%. Obviously I'm not a mathematician here, so I don't think that's technically a 10% pull rate for a 10 pull, because so like the first 9 pulls of a 10 pull is 5%, and the 10th pull also has a 5% pull. Is that two 5% pulls? Is that 10%, or is that like multiplied in some way to get slightly less than that, like a 7 or 8% or something? I don't know how it works. Someone else can tell me how that works. That's actually very similar to how it works in Shadowverse, which I still to this day don't understand how it works. So someone who is better at math, please explain that to me. I don't get it, but rates are pretty good. 5% is actually pretty high for a gacha game. At least I think so. But obviously people always bitch no matter what the percentage is. They always say it's low. I don't know what percentage these people want. Maybe they want 100%. Not my problem. Personally, I think it's fine. I think rates are fine. As I said before, the dupe system, you do need 11 copies of a unit to max them. I really don't have a problem with dupes. Obviously, I play Brave 9 for the last 15 months. I think dupes are fine. My account is maxed out. Obviously, I have spent money, but even free-to-play players have plenty of max units. It's really not a problem if you actually play the game long term. Obviously, you will be pulling dupes anyways. Just how the game works. If you pull for units, you will eventually pull dupes. I'm not 100% sure how banners are gonna work. At least as far as I can tell, I don't think the game is gonna have those weird paid banners or the visions. So if you don't like paid banners and paid diamonds and whatnot, it's great. I doubt we're gonna have those. Maybe we'll have like guaranteed SSR banners, but hopefully those use normal diamonds, which would be great. I didn't see anything in the game that indicated there was going to be a separation of free and paid diamonds, so definitely a major positive point for me. Overall, I say that the game is definitely worth trying. Now, the game did have some major issues that we are going to have to talk about. Now, the first issue we really have to discuss is the translation quality and the grammar in the game. They did say that they were going to start fixing that now. I'm not sure when the game releases, but it was in a pretty bad state. The next biggest issue that people were having in general was graphical errors. Now, most people didn't realize that it was a graphical error. Most people just assumed that the game looked like shit. But in reality, if you have the proper settings, the game actually looks pretty good. Obviously, it doesn't look as good as 7 Deadly Sins. That being said, personally, I think it just comes down to the type of shading that the characters have, less so than the actual models themselves. The actual models for the game characters actually looks really good. I personally think the models are very high quality. I would even say they actually look console level. The problem that it runs into is, in my opinion, the shading of the characters is definitely not up to 7 Deadly Sins level, because 7 Deadly Sins uses cell shading, and cell shading always looks beautiful if you do it properly. There was an issue with the game in the graphics whereby if your game was not displaying in 16:9 aspect ratio, so that is to say if your resolution for your game wasn't basically 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080, it was going to show like very blurry. People assumed incorrectly that this was because the character model sucked. This is not the case. If you play the game with the proper emulator settings, which is 16:9, then it will display perfectly fine. Hopefully they actually do fix this so that people who play on phones that are not 16:9 don't get fucked over. For example, your Samsung phones. Samsung phones, if I'm not mistaken, display in 16:10. Actually, I think they might even be 18:10. Yeah. If it doesn't display properly on those devices, that's going to be a big issue. And then the biggest issue for me, and the reason why I had trouble getting to the late game on top of my laziness, was because of crashing. Now, if you go around and you look anywhere pretty much on the internet about this game, the game was crashing a lot. I actually couldn't play the game at all on LD player, no matter which version I tried it on. So first of all, that's a pretty big issue right there. The game just straight up crashed every time you tried to open it. Then I tried it on BlueStacks, was working, but it crashes. I want to say maybe once every like 4 or 5 minutes. It was a lot of crashing. Safe to say, it kind of pissed me off and made me not want to play. This can still be fixed though. This is the thing that you guys can notice about all these issues, is that all of them can be fixed. And once the issues are fixed, the game itself is still quite good. So I definitely overall, I want to say this game is definitely worth playing. If you like the Tales franchise especially, I would highly suggest trying the game out. At least just to collect your favorite characters. Now, when it comes to rerolling, the reroll process itself is actually quite simple. It's even better because you actually get to select one character right out of the bat. Obviously, it's from a pre-selected list, but on that list is the main character Crestoria, which is one of my favorite characters, Crow. So that's great. If you guys like certain characters that are not on that list, you're just gonna have to reroll for them, but that's also not a big issue. So overall, definitely try out the game when it comes out. Either way, guys, that's it for me. I'm out. Have a nice day.